I'm generally a calm and balanced person, but when it comes to my personal life, I can't say I'm always in control. Let me give you an example. At an event, my wife's lover came up to me and told me he really liked my wife, especially in bed. I was extremely angry. I told him to leave and said I hated him. Divorce court several months later, but that's a story for another time. I never imagined our relationship would unravel like this. We seemed destined to be together forever. 7 years may not seem like much, but we appeared to be the perfect couple. I never once doubted her loyalty until the moment I realized what a fool I had been. She shamelessly cheated with an actor while we were all attending an awards ceremony in Cannes, south of France. She was employed at a prestigious the agency that represents top-tier actors is where I met her. It was there among my friends that the path to her temptation and the downfall of our marriage unfolded. I don't understand why they thought it was a good idea to include me in their Mediterranean trip. Maybe they thought I would just go along with whatever was presented to me. They were wrong. I won't dignify the despicable individual who seduced her and labeled her as his conquest. Why not? Because certain individuals they paid me handsomely to keep quiet about what happened and to get her out of my life. Money was the motivation. She's given up all claims to our shared assets, presumably paid for by either the guy himself or her employer at the agency. I don't care if she suffers consequences. The deceitful traitor. I have to mention this individual to recount the story, but I'll refer to him as Tim. Are you familiar with any? Well, I'm not aware of any other Tims out there, so I apologize if I've offended anyone by not recognizing them. A non-disclosure agreement was offered to me for just $5 million. The disclosure agreement was a good deal. It got rid of her without affecting our assets. I was already financially secure, but I was offered $5 million to be practical. The prospect of such a large sum discreetly deposited was too tempting to pass up. Offshore was too tempting to pass up, especially since I was determined to end things with her, even if it meant relinquishing over half of our assets. As for me, I'm Jeff Smithers and I'm a very frustrated soon-to-be single man. Although I wasn't aware of it yet at the start of the story, I was still part of it. I hate being deceived and realizing how I've been taken for a fool. I'm the proprietor of my consulting business, which I've built from the ground up over a decade. It's thriving, financing the majority of Cindy, and I had a lifestyle that involved some potential challenges. I made sure Cindy signed a prenuptial agreement to protect the business from being considered communal property in our marriage, which turned out to be a good move. Even so, she would have had to agree to that if she had a strong clientele base. I've got lots of ongoing contracts with big companies, so my professional future is secure. The problem is Cindy. She was really charming at first and I thought we were perfect for each other. But then she cheated on me, maybe because she was attracted to someone famous. It's such an overused scenario. Cindy was and still is gorgeous. I used to think her beauty was inside and out, but it's amazing how love can make you blind. We were both 29, married for 7 years after dating for 2. She'd been working at the agency for 8. Over the years, she'd risen to a position where she was heavily involved with some of our largest clients. In particular, she was working closely with Tim. Had I not been so deeply in love and trusting, I might have noticed the warning signs when she was informed that she would be working with Tim. She was overjoyed. She spoke of feeling honored and described him as handsome and genuinely kind. These were all signs of infatuation. However, I was too trusting to see the danger. She was asked to accompany Tim on a tour of TV networks to promote his latest movie. Although her long absences sometimes lasted a week, 10 days, and even an 18-day trip, I didn't think anything of it. I was worried about her day trips across major European capitals. I didn't want to dampen her excitement, though. I was genuinely happy for her. Cindy adored her job, especially the opportunity to mingle with famous personalities. A few months later, she still overflowed with the thrill of her travels and the stardust. She arrived home one night bursting with news. She said, "Jeff, I've been invited to the Stardust. I got some amazing news today." Tim's film has been nominated for an award at the Cannes Film Festival, and I'll be at the Entourage event. I'm really excited to be involved, and I'll even be at the awards ceremony. My agency is kindly providing a budget for evening gowns for the ceremony and parties. She looked a little disappointed at my reaction, so I explained that I thought I'd been reasonable, given everything. She'd already done a lot of traveling for the publicity tour. I just said, "What's the matter, Jeff? I thought you'd be happy for me." She said, "I missed you so much during your publicity tour. Being apart from you for over 3 months, especially those several weeks, was tough." I explained, "But I understand. It's part of your job, and I know how much you wanted it." I let my words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "I just hope you'll have some time for your husband after all this." Cindy seemed a bit hurt by my remark. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she remained silent. The absence of any objection from her initially made me wonder if there was more going on than I realized. However, my suspicion was short-lived. She surprised me the following day by telling me that the agency would cover my travel expenses as a token of appreciation for the time I had allowed her to be away from home. She said it would entail the trip was fully paid for and the accommodation was top-notch, so I agreed to go to France without a second thought. I rearranged a few appointments and worked remotely with some clients, and made sure I had time off to go. If I had known then what I know now, I would have stayed. I would still have believed I had a faithful wife. Even if it felt like a terrible situation at the time, there was a silver lining. So, we set off on a journey to France, specifically to the stunning town of Cannes on the French Riviera, situated along the coast from Monaco and the bustling city of Nice. The festival typically takes place in May and spans 11 or 12 days. We were accommodated in a luxurious 5-star hotel with a suite overlooking the renowned Place du Midi, where famous and particularly beautiful actresses are often photographed against the backdrop of the Bay of Angels. We stayed at a star hotel with a suite overlooking the renowned Plage du Midi, where famous and particularly beautiful actresses are often photographed against the backdrop of the Bay of Angels. I was excited to see Cindy actively participating in the group, leveraging the public to the fullest as the most attractive female member alongside a well-known actress. She would serve as an occasional eye-catching presence. Looking at the press photos while I had online work to do felt like a holiday, as I kept myself entertained. I didn't have much contact with Cindy and I wasn't particularly worried. I thought her admiration for Tim came from being with a celebrity, but it was just her job. I was genuinely concerned when she came back to the suite to get ready for the afternoon of publicity photo shoots on the beach. She was meant to be a decorative addition to the main actors, and we'd been there for 5 days. Everything was going smoothly until she came out of the bathroom wearing what I'm reluctant to call clothes. It looked like nothing more than a few strands of dental floss strummed on top of each other, barely covering anything. The only thing covering her was a small piece of cloth, although the material was partially opaque, and it was obvious that if it got wet, it would show everything. I was taken aback. I had never witnessed it before. "Cindy, you're not seriously going out in public dressed like that, are you?" I exclaimed in disbelief. "Where did you get that?" "It's a gift from Tim. He said it would make the press photo sizzle. It's part of my job here." "Jeff, please don't blow it out of proportion," she responded, looking somewhat ashamed but showing no intention of changing. "Damn it, Cindy. I don't want half of France, let alone our friends at home, to see you in that outfit. You look like an adult film actress," I blurted out before I fully thought about my words. After my remark, she angrily grabbed something and ran out. I decided to leave her alone, focused on my work, and ordered a simple lunch to our room through room service. I enjoyed dinner on a small terrace overlooking Midi. I was at the beach and noticed Cindy and her friends posing for photographers, both professionals and amateurs, from our terrace, which was about 30 meters away. I could see everything that was going on, but my wife's view was the most provocative. It was obvious that she rarely strayed far from Tim. I saw him wrap his arm around her waist a few times, which made me uncomfortable. It was a bit awkward to watch, but it didn't seem like anything was going on that shouldn't be. As the photo shoot wrapped up, a few of them, including Cindy and Tim, went over to the sea. The rest went back to the hotel. The distance from the embankment to the sea was pretty short, so I could easily see what was going on from my spot. But again, nothing. I couldn't help but notice something suspicious. After they got into the water, I saw her walking back along the beach with his arm around her waist the whole time. I wasn't pleased with what I saw. It seemed like something you'd expect from lovers, and it fell short of what you'd expect from a loyal husband for the first time. I was genuinely concerned about my marriage. My mood didn't lighten. When she got back to the room after another 45 minutes, she seemed totally innocent, like she couldn't possibly have done anything wrong. I frowned and shrugged. "What's up?" she asked, looking confused by my reaction. "What's wrong?" I looked at her, focusing on her appearance and what I'd noticed recently. "Well, I'll give you the general overview first. My wife's figure is on display for the whole of France to see. The entire population can observe her." She interrupted me by saying, "Don't be so tense, Jeff. This is Europe. No one here is worried about this. No one cares. I thought it might please you. We've been apart for so long this year that I decided to wear this for you." I stood by my opinion. "Cindy, Tim bought this for you. You wear this for him, or at best for not for me. Besides, I saw you and Tim walking along the beach. He was hugging you all the time, hugging you to him. And as if that wasn't enough, you returned to the hotel 45 minutes before you came here. Where have you been?" She blushed with decency before replying. "What exactly are you implying, Jeff? What accusations are you making against me?" "Jeff, I want you to understand that this is purely professional. I'm simply fulfilling my responsibilities. Yes, Tim may be attractive, but that's where it ends. There's nothing more to it, darling. I'm focused on my work." I chose to hold my tongue. I suppose her explanation was plausible, but it was evident she had spent considerable time with Tim, and they were obviously comfortable around each other. Was she exceptionally skilled? At work, she said there might be a big bonus for managing Tim's affairs. This was the end of the movie project, and maybe in a month I'd regret ever doubting her. The next day was a big moment. It was the evening of the first awards ceremony for his film. I wasn't there as an official guest. I was just an extra with no role or involvement. Cindy looked amazing in her dress, and I was really excited for her as she left for the event. I thought there was a good chance she'd be sitting next to Tim. I was hoping my heart wouldn't get broken. The festival was on French TV, so I quickly found out that Cindy wasn't just sitting next to Tim, but she also seemed to be leaning towards him. Tim ended up winning an award and I got a text inviting me to the after-party. That's when things started to go wrong. It was fine at first, with a few drinks, but then it got out of hand. Some people left, and I saw Cindy heading for the restroom. I was surprised when Tim approached me. We'd never talked before, and I didn't think we had anything in common. We had something in common, though. He said, "Common ground." Then he told me he'd slept with my wife. "Jeff, you have an amazing wife. You're a lucky guy. You're very lucky she's been the only one helping me relax for the last few months." "Thank you, bro." He was clearly drunk. How else can you explain this prank? I felt a strong desire to confront him physically. I'm a big guy, probably 25 pounds heavier and 3 in taller. He was about 30 pounds heavier and 3 in taller, and I was seething with anger. However, I wanted to hear more about it, so I managed to ask him, "Interesting, Tim, how long have you been spending time together like this?" I kept a sober look while he was obviously drunk and enjoying his bragging rights. He started the promotional tour and boasted, "I'm sure I've been in bed with her maybe 30 times. I bet you're jealous of what she's doing. I don't think she even tried it with you and probably wouldn't have tried if it wasn't for me, so you still owe me." I noticed that she was approaching, but I chose not to pay attention to her, hoping that she would hear what we were going to talk about next. Tim didn't notice her presence, so I turned to him. "Tim, thanks for telling me that. She's just another promiscuous woman." Don't you want to get rid of her? Her expression changed when she heard my question, and she burst into tears when she heard his answer. You can keep her for yourself. I can find a woman like your wife anywhere, anytime. She's as good as a woman, but nothing more. Why would I be interested in a woman like her? You're in charge of her, but thanks for lending me the time. She was good for a few meetings, but nothing more. I could hear her sobbing, repeating, no, 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 it shouldn't be like that. When I glanced at her and shook my head, I turned back to Tim and said, well, I don't need her either. Then I hit him once, causing him to fall to the ground. Shortly after, the local police handcuffed me and took me away. Looking back, I noticed that Cindy was helping Tim up and seeking medical attention for his nose was obviously damaged, but it didn't affect his appearance at all, which suited me fine as the aggrieved husband. I ended up punching him and knocking him down, but I got myself arrested. The police couldn't have members of the public attacking famous actors. The issue for me was that I didn't speak French, but they provided an interpreter and the police questioned me in his presence. This occurred at 9, it was 10 p.m. morning. After spending the night in the cell, the police asked me about the incident that led to me assaulting a famous actor. I said I wasn't going to answer and asked to speak with a lawyer first. They said I had the right to legal representation and sent me back to the cell to wait with a lawyer. About an hour later, I was told that my wife had arrived to see me. But I told her I wasn't interested in talking to her. It was like a scene from the Pink Panther movies, with that French accent and everything. They seemed to understand that I wasn't going to speak with her and asked her to leave. Not long after that, a police officer brought me coffee and a croissant, and he was really understanding and sympathetic, even putting his finger to his nose like he was in the movies. Manami, about 30 minutes later, two things happened almost at the same time. A French lawyer called Miss Philippe LeBlanc was brought in to see me, and someone from Cindy's agency also wanted to speak with me. LeBlanc suggested that we listen to the agency's proposal. After some discussion with the police, we arranged to meet privately. I agreed, hoping for help with my situation and an update on Tim's. The agency sent their second-in-command to speak with me. Peter Longstaff, a name I found quite amusing, despite my initial amusement. I'd met Peter briefly at a few company gatherings and he'd seemed like a decent individual. I waited for him to start the conversation. Jeff, did you have any inkling that something was going on? Peter asked me about what was going on between them. I shook my head, saying I had no idea until I saw them together on the beach yesterday. Peter, I never thought she would do something like that. I thought our relationship was solid. Did your team know about this? I'll be honest with you, Jeff. I sympathize with you because some people in our circles had suspicions, but it wasn't until very late in the game, just before this. The whole thing came out in the press, and speaking for myself, I'm sorry, Jeff. I saw what happened and I have to say, off the record, I thought it was pretty funny when you put him on the ground. He could do with a lesson in humility. Peter said with a smile, yes, Peter was a good person. Jeff, what do you want to happen in an ideal world? I'd like to move on. I wish I could just eliminate them both and move forward, but I know that's unlikely anytime soon. What's your plan regarding Cindy? Can you patch things up with her? Peter, no way. I'm going to divorce her and do whatever it takes to bring both her and him down. If the agency is going to be held responsible for this, you understand. Peter looked at me and said, that's what I expected, Jeff. We all have our own interests here. You need to leave and we need to keep this under wraps. Tim doesn't want anyone else to know he got beat up. He's supposed to be an action hero, after all. Since he's not filing charges, there won't be any prosecution. The local politicians are keen on keeping their festival untarnished, so you're off the hook. You can inform your lawyer friend that he's no longer necessary. He left with a brief handshake, saying that the agency would cover his fees upon receipt of an emailed bill to the address on his business card. Jeff, let's get down to business. Are you divorced? No chance of reconciliation? I understand if you are, but I want you to know that she still cares for you deeply. She just got lost in an infatuation with a famous actor. Trust me, she'll be heartbroken. I truly wish she suffered for it. Peter, I despise her completely. She gave that arrogant jerk everything she had to offer. If what he boasted to me is accurate, she gave me a few favors, but I never did the same for her. We were intimate, but that stopped when she started seeing that guy. I get it, Jeff. I'll make sure you get everything you need from the divorce. We'll make sure she knows she'll be out of a job and look bad if she doesn't play along. Jeff, I'll also suggest to the board that they pay you well to stay quiet about everything if you're okay with that. Jeff, I'm arranging for you to leave and get on the next flight back home. That's fine with you? I nodded in agreement as he carried on. Trust me, Jeff. I'll make sure you come out of this as well as you can. I'm sorry, I know it sounds a bit cliché, but I mean it. I give you my word. Even though we don't know each other that well, I consider myself a Jeff. You're a man of integrity. Before you leave, Cindy asked me to ask you to speak with her. She doesn't know about my plans, but could you have a conversation with her before you leave tonight? Peter, you're the hero in all of this, but could you promise me one thing? Will you tell her these exact words? He nodded in agreement. Tell her she's a reprehensible, deceitful person and I never want to see her again. Never. I'm truly sorry it's come to this, but yes, I'll relay your message to her verbatim. She'll react just as you anticipate. She'll be devastated, but Jeff, she only has herself to blame. I'll get in touch next week and give you the best offer I can get from the board. I'll also get Cindy to see that she has no choice but to go along with it. I'll sort out your release, take you back to the hotel, make sure she's not in your suite when you arrive and then escort you there myself. I'll get you to the airport for the earliest flight home in just over 15 hours. My marriage imploded. I was consumed by pure anger and hatred towards both Cindy and Tim for what they did to me within another 15 hours. I found myself back home feeling empty in both my body and my house without Cindy knew our relationship was over. I couldn't stay here with all these memories. I was going to hit her hard in the divorce while she couldn't afford the rent. One of my first tasks was to tell the landlord we were leaving. I knew Cindy would be in France for another week. It gave me plenty of time to take care of the banking stuff, savings, checking accounts, credit and debit cards. I was kept busy with these tasks, which helped me get through the pain of betrayal and focus on what was important in the divorce. Even though Peter Longstaff was known as a nice guy, I needed to make sure the outcome was in my favor. Before I knew it, I got a call from Peter, who wanted to meet and talk about things. He said he wanted to get a quick and easy divorce, so we met in my office. Peter introduced me to the lawyer he was working with. He was with a nice woman named Jeannie O'Battles, whom I immediately thought of as Genie in a bottle. She was sharp and didn't seem like any cartoon character. Mr. Smithers, I want to say on behalf of the agency involved in this agreement or negotiation that we're really sorry for our role in the breakdown of your marriage. I've been given the authority to extend a substantial offer to you, but you'll have to sign a non-disclosure agreement first. Basically, they're offering you compensation. I know Peter mentioned something similar before, so here's a preliminary agreement. Your father was a lawyer, so please have him or another representative look it over. It's important to keep this agreement secret, otherwise all offers will be retracted and your wife will face consequences, likely resulting in a contentious divorce. This isn't meant as a threat, but rather information you need to consider in your decision. Peter has put together a great package. Take your time to look it over and get advice, but remember that confidentiality is key. Peter and I are here to answer any questions you have today. I'm sure you'll find the offer very appealing. Also, Mrs. Smithers is aware. She knows her options are limited and is willing to follow my advice, but she wants to speak to you for an hour. I told her it's not going to work out, but she says that's her condition. She wants to persuade you to consider a future together, so I told her, oh, I know. I've decided I'm not going to see or speak to her anymore. I'm done with this. Peter, did you tell her the exact message I gave you to tell her? Peter replied, yes, Jeff. I told her you said she's despicable and a cheat, and that you never want to see her again. Jeff, She broke down in tears just as you wanted me to. Jeff, I have to tell you that I think she might be in a state of severe delusion. She muttered, we'll see about that, which concerns me a lot. Jeff glanced at Peter, who looked expressionless. He no longer cared about Cindy. His anger had consumed him to the point where hate was his main emotion. He hadn't realized that hate isn't the opposite of love, it's just distorted love, probably damaged but still there despite the emptiness or disdain he felt. Jeff was about to ISS her and tell her to stop. Her behavior was threatening to leave the negotiation and cause chaos for everyone involved. However, before he could speak, G intervened. Jeff, if you're absolutely certain about divorcing your wife and confident in your decision, what harm would it do to give her just an hour? In my view, you could shatter her. He had high hopes in just 5 minutes, but even if she's determined and it takes an hour, so what? You'll never have to deal with her again. When he presented it that way, it seemed like less of a big deal. Having resolved this issue, he decided to reconsider the offer and return to discuss it with a woman whom he called a woman of easy virtue. She gave him the written offer. It wasn't a formal legal document. Instead, it had bullet points that set out the framework for the legal language to be added, agreed upon and signed off on. This was an agreement between the agency and Mr. Jeff Smithers. In exchange for completing a mutually agreed non-disclosure version of this agreement, the agency would pay Mr. Smithers $5 million. This is the version of the agreement that will be disclosed. The agency will pay Mr. Smithers $5 million to make up for the distress caused by a client and an employee of the agency. The agency is offering this payment as a complete and final settlement of any claim that might arise from the aforementioned actions. The agency's client, who is referred to as Tim, says he is sorry for drunkenly disclosing details of his affair with Mr. Smithers' wife. He says he will not pursue any legal action regarding the physical altercation. He said he deserved at least what he received. 4. The agency will keep Cindy Smithers on as a consultant and pay her for her share of joint assets. This will help her to be financially independent without relying on Jeff Smithers. 2 weeks before the scheduled court date for the divorce proceedings, it's not overly complicated, Jeff. We could all add layers to make it complex, but all parties understand the wisdom in avoiding unnecessary drama. The truth is there are no winners here except for you financially. Although you've lost a wife in a moment of clarity, Jeff realized he couldn't expect more than what was being offered. He didn't need advice and even decided to agree to see her for up to an hour, but made it clear it wouldn't be a comfortable situation. Jeff doubted she'd last more than 10 minutes and told them to tell her she could contact his office to schedule the meeting whenever she wanted to get it over with. Cindy tried to see Jeff at his office but was denied entry. However, she was allowed to schedule an appointment via the intercom. Jeff told her he'd only grant the agreed-upon single meeting and she could take it or leave it. The following day, she arrived 5 minutes ahead of schedule but was kept waiting until 3:00 p.m. Before she could even get close to Jeff, he stopped her with a raised hand, saying, "Don't lay a finger on me. You disgraceful woman. Spit out your words and leave." She was so angry, tears streaming down her face. She kept begging, "Oh Jeff, what have I done? Has your heart truly hardened so much against me that even a small display of affection is unbearable? We've shared 9 years of love, Jeff. I'm your wife. I love you, Jeff. I know I was foolish to be infatuated with a movie star. I know my actions were wrong and selfish. Cindy, what do you expect to happen? I don't love you anymore. Peter conveyed my message to you. He relayed your words, hurtful as they were. But I believe deep down you still love me. We're meant to grow old together. Jeff, Cindy, are you out of your mind? You betrayed me in the most horrible way possible. You've been with him for months. Even the day I saw you coming. Cindy, you took 45 minutes to cross the road to our room after you got back from the beach. I know what happened between you and Jeff. You came to me as if nothing had happened. You discussed me with Jeff, and I'm filing for divorce. Please, Jeff, I'm begging you. I made a mistake, but I love you with all my heart. Please give me another chance. This is your only chance, Cindy. Just tell the truth, and let's see where it leads. Jeff's gallant lover bragged to me about what happened in his. I want to know if you slept with him at the beginning of the promotional tour. Just answer yes or no. Did you let him do things to you that you never did to me? She admitted that she did, but Jeff is famous and attractive, so she felt she had to do it for him. It all makes sense if you lack any intelligence or self-respect. Cindy, do you understand that respect is not something you can buy with fame and celebrity status? You have allowed Jeff to manipulate you because of his fame. Do you understand that the love you thought you had is now in the past? It is gone and will never come back. You disgust me. You heard me tell Jeff to leave you because I don't need you. You heard him throw you away like trash, saying he could find someone like you anywhere. Do you understand that you mean nothing to him? To him, you're just a disposable toy that he can use and throw away. Jeff, this is unfair. You agreed to give me an hour to discuss our marriage, but all you're doing is yelling at me. I felt a surge of intense rage and betrayal. I wanted to hurt her to show her that our relationship was over. But even as I felt hatred growing inside me, I still loved her. It was like a knife to my heart, creating a turmoil that felt capable of consuming me entirely. Get out. I despise you. I spat, seething with contempt. She sobbed, her anguish palpable, and fled through the door. Several months later, I encountered her again, this time at the courthouse. Her lawyer had reached out, claiming she accused me of shortchanging her during our allotted hour. She acknowledged the inevitability of our separation but sought closure, insisting when she asked to speak with me after the divorce proceedings, I thought it would be a quick half hour. But I agreed to meet after the divorce was finalized. I felt I owed her nothing, but I went to the final decree anyway. I guess I felt like I owed her something. It was just a gesture to ease the path forward in the months that followed. My anger faded away, replaced by a melancholic acceptance that something once so important in my life, it now held little to no importance. There were moments when I drank excessively to numb the occasional pang of regret over ending things with her. A few close friends approached me about reconciliation, insisting we were great together and suggesting that starting a family might rekindle what we once had before Tim came between us. They pleaded with me to give her another chance, emphasizing how deeply she loved me, but it all felt like nonsense. I couldn't tell if they were genuinely concerned or simply acting on her behalf despite their apparent sincerity. Their constant prodding only served to infuriate me. Eventually, I confided in a few trusted friends, instructing them to ensure anyone mentioning Cindy would be swiftly removed from my life. As a result, some of our closest friends distanced themselves from me. They couldn't tolerate the person I'd become. By the time I found myself led into a side room at the courthouse where Cindy stood alone was cold and callous. She appeared as beautiful as ever, but those who knew her, like me, could see the damage evident in her, just as it was in me. She was dressed as if for a funeral, fittingly so, as this marked the funeral of our marriage. Its last rites had been administered, it was interred, all finalized and concluded. Now it was time for the obligatory post-mortem conversation, which is customary in times of mourning. We had resolved the issues between us, or at least I had. She had given up on the hope she once had. There was nothing left to argue about, so I said, "Cindy, you look good. How have things been?" "I've had better times," she replied. "Jeff, I've been seeing a therapist for a few months now. People said it would help, but honestly, losing my husband, the man I loved. I've realized that chasing after a famous actor was a foolish move. I gave him what I never gave to my husband, the only person I've truly loved. It's too little, too late, Jeff. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. I wish I could undo it all and replace it with the love I still have for you, which will always be in my heart. I don't expect anything from you. I betrayed you, plain and simple. It's painful to know the guy I thought was worthless now sees me the same way, but I made this mess and I have to live with it. I wanted to see you one last time to make some kind of peace with you. I want you to know that I won't live a loveless life, but I'll always hold on to my love for you. If you ever realize its value and want it back, it will be here for you. Just ask, but I won't hold my breath. I know it's over. I guess we're done." That's the only way I can see living my life now. I never doubted her sincerity. She was being truthful. There'd be no point in anything else. It would have been easy to reach out to her and try to rekindle our love. I could have listened to our friends. But I didn't. I knew her employer still valued her. She was good at her job. In fact, she might be even more valuable. Now that she's free from her husband, she'll probably end up in the same situation that led to her infidelity. We don't have a future together, and the anger is gone, but I still love her. I could be nice to her one last time. Cindy, I'm telling you this because it's hard to get rid of the love you had for her. Let go of that love. I'll never love you back. I don't want you to dwell on the past. Move forward with your life and be happy. Cindy, she came over and this time I couldn't push her away. We shared a hug like the ones we used to have. She said she was sorry for what she did to us. Then Jeff left the room without looking back. It was probably for the best that she didn't look back. I would have been crying uncontrollably. I realized that the love of my life had finally given up and left me. I thought that was what I wanted because I could never trust her again, but it felt as though someone had taken away a part of me, leaving behind a dark, cold, and desolate void. Perhaps it was time for me to listen to my remaining friends and seek counseling to help me recover. She had ultimately driven her away, dealt a fatal blow to our marriage and crushed whatever remained. It was time to move forward. 5 years have passed and my life has changed drastically. I've become not only the happy owner of a new house but also the husband of a beautiful wife who has given me a wonderful son. Her name is Sophie and we met about 6 months after my official divorce when I withdrew into seclusion. All I could think about was revenge. I knew Tim, who played a big part in my marriage ending, got off lightly. His apology and acknowledgement of his mistake couldn't make up for what he did. Sophie was my lifeline. We met by chance and were dating for a year before I proposed. Am I happy? Yes, which is more than I can say for the people who destroyed my previous life. My ex. My wife worked for a while, but then she got caught having an affair with one of her colleagues. It was the worst possible moment. After she was given a second chance at work, she didn't perform her duties properly, so she was fired without remorse and left somewhere to the other end of the country. I don't know how she's doing, but there's no news about her, so I'm guessing it's not great. I don't think he's doing as well as he used to. It seems like after he messed up my marriage, he ended up messing up a few more. Some people even say he's in trouble with the law. I've heard that he's having health problems because one of the women he was involved with wasn't exactly clean. In the end, everyone got what they deserved, and Carmen did its job. But life goes on.